Myra stood at the edge of the desert, her boots sinking slightly into the reddish sand. The wind whispered across the barren land, carrying tiny grains that shimmered in the sunlight. In the distance, the planetarium loomed like an old guardian, half buried by sand and time. Its domed roof was cracked, and its walls were faded and worn, yet something about it called to her. She had traveled far to reach this lonely planet, driven by stories of strange lights that appeared in the sky above the planetarium, lights that seemed alive, moving in patterns no human eyes had ever traced. Myra adjusted her backpack, checking her instruments one last time. She had prepared for months, studying old maps, analyzing satellite data, and learning about the planet's harsh environment. Yet, standing here, she felt a thrill of excitement mixed with a hint of fear. The planetarium was supposed to be deserted, a place abandoned long ago. And yet, she could sense something waiting inside. Something important. As she stepped closer, she noticed footprints in the sand, recent footprints. They were small but purposeful, leading toward the cracked entrance of the planetarium. Myra froze. She had expected to be alone. She crouched to examine the tracks. The sand had been disturbed only hours ago. Whoever had come here was still nearby. A rustling sound made her spin around. From the shadows of a broken wall, a figure emerged. It was a young man, carrying a small bag and wearing a sturdy explorer's coat. His eyes widened slightly when he saw her. "You're not supposed to be here," he said cautiously. His voice was calm, yet carried a hint of curiosity. "I could say the same to you," Myra replied, keeping her tone steady. "I'm Myra. I study cosmic phenomena. I heard about strange lights here, and I wanted to see them myself." The man relaxed a little and extended a hand. "I'm Kiran. Explorer. Same reason as you, I guess. Strange lights, unusual energy readings. I couldn't resist. Looks like we're not alone in our curiosity." Myra shook his hand. There was a firm but gentle grip, and in that brief touch, she felt an unexpected sense of connection. They exchanged cautious smiles, each measuring the other's intentions. Despite the strange circumstances, it felt good to meet someone who shared her fascination. "Do you want to explore together?" Kiran asked. "It's safer than wandering alone in this place." Myra nodded. "Agreed. But let's be careful. The building is old. It could collapse or have dangerous areas." Together, they stepped into the planetarium. The air inside was dry, carrying the faint scent of dust and metal. Sunlight streamed through cracks in the roof, casting long, shifting shadows across the floor. The walls were lined with faded murals of stars, planets, and celestial charts. The domed ceiling, though cracked, still held the faint shimmer of old paint designed to glow under artificial lights. Myra switched on her handheld scanner, the device humming softly. The readings jumped almost immediately, energies she could not immediately identify, flickering like tiny sparks. Kiran's eyes lit up. "This is amazing," he whispered. "It's like the planetarium itself is alive." As they moved further, Myra noticed the old consoles and devices scattered across the floor. They were dusty, some broken, some strangely intact. She knelt to examine one of the consoles, brushing away layers of sand and debris. Symbols glowed faintly under her fingers, responding as if aware of her touch. Kiran leaned over her shoulder, studying the readings on his own device. "I've never seen anything like this," he said quietly. "It's old, yes, but there's energy here. Real energy." Myra smiled, her heart racing. She felt a mixture of wonder and relief. Finally, someone else understood the excitement she felt. For the first time, exploring this deserted place didn't feel lonely. There was someone to share the discoveries with, someone who could match her curiosity and determination. Hours passed as they moved through the vast hall, examining the murals, testing the consoles, and noting strange patterns in the projections on the walls. Outside, the desert sun sank lower, turning the sky a deep orange. Inside, the planetarium seemed to breathe with its own rhythm, the glow of old technologies faint but persistent. When they finally paused to rest, Myra and Kieran sat side by side on the dusty floor, their shoulders brushing slightly. Neither spoke at first, content to simply observe the silent beauty of the place. Myra felt a spark of something she could not yet name, a warmth that went beyond curiosity or excitement. And as the first stars began to appear in the sky outside, she knew this was just the beginning of something extraordinary, an adventure, yes, but perhaps also a connection that neither of them had expected in this deserted, mysterious planetarium. The sun had disappeared completely behind the distant dunes, and the desert grew colder with each passing moment. Inside the planetarium, Myra and Kieran continued their exploration. The fading light from the cracks in the domed roof cast long shadows across the walls, giving the murals of stars and planets a strange, almost magical glow. Myra carefully examined one of the ancient consoles, tracing the faint patterns of symbols with her fingers. Each symbol seemed to pulse softly, as if it recognized her touch. Kieran, meanwhile, had discovered a small set of mechanical devices tucked in a corner of the room. He brushed away the layers of dust, curious about their purpose. "These look like projectors," he said. "They might have been used to create the star patterns on the ceiling. But I've never seen anything like them. They seem alive." Myra glanced at him, intrigued. "Alive? What do you mean?" He pointed to a tiny light on one of the devices. "Look. Every time I move closer, the light brightens. It's as if it's reacting to us." Myra knelt beside him, feeling a thrill run through her. The planetarium was no longer just a place of history or abandoned technology, it was a place that responded to life. She smiled, sharing Kieran's excitement. "Let's see what happens if we touch them together." Carefully, they placed their hands near the device at the same time. The light grew brighter, forming a small, glowing pattern on the floor. It was delicate, like a miniature constellation coming alive under their hands. Both of them held their breath, marveling at the unexpected beauty. Then, a sudden crackling noise broke the quiet. Sparks shot from a nearby console, landing on some dry, scattered papers. Within moments, a small flame flickered and began to grow. Myra jumped back, coughing as smoke filled the air. "Kieran! Watch out," she shouted. Without hesitation, Kieran grabbed a nearby piece of fabric and tried to smother the fire. Myra joined him, and together they managed to put it out before it could spread too far. The room was filled with the smell of smoke, and tiny embers floated in the air like fireflies. Both of them stood still for a moment, catching their breath. Myra looked at Kieran, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and admiration. "You were so fast," she said softly. Kieran shook his head, smiling despite the situation. "We make a good team, don't we?" he said, his voice steady. "That could have been much worse if we weren't careful." Myra nodded, feeling a warmth spread through her chest, not from the fire, but from the sense of connection she felt. Their hands brushed as she adjusted her scanner, and for a brief moment, they simply stared at each other. The sparks from the small fire seemed to mirror something between them, a quiet energy neither had expected. Once the smoke cleared, they resumed their exploration, but more cautiously this time. Myra made notes about the consoles and devices, recording how some of them seemed to react to human presence. Kieran helped her, explaining his own theories and testing the equipment. Every so often, their hands touched while passing tools or adjusting devices, and each time, a small spark of electricity or maybe something more ran between them. Hours passed quickly. The planetarium, once silent and still, now felt alive with their shared energy. Outside, the desert night stretched endlessly, but inside, Myra and Kieran were focused and alert, their curiosity and teamwork guiding them through the mysteries of the place. At one point, Myra looked up at the cracked dome. The faint glow of the artificial stars had turned on automatically, illuminating the room in soft, shimmering light. Kieran joined her, and together they stood in silence, watching the tiny lights flicker above them. The planetarium felt like a universe within a universe, a secret world they had stumbled upon together. Finally, Myra sat on a dusty bench, tired but exhilarated. "I've never seen anything like this," she admitted. "It's like the planetarium is alive, and it's waiting for someone to understand it." Kieran sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "And I'm glad I'm here with you," he said quietly. "I don't think I could have enjoyed it the same way alone." Myra felt her heart beat a little faster. There was something about the quiet honesty in his voice that made her feel safe, excited, and connected all at once. She smiled, realizing that this adventure was no longer just about studying the stars or discovering strange phenomena. It was also about the bond growing between them, a spark as real and alive as the mysterious devices they had just encountered. Outside, the desert wind howled, but inside the planetarium, Myra and Kieran shared a moment of calm. The fire had come and gone, leaving no damage except for a reminder that they needed to be careful and perhaps, that together, they could face whatever challenges the abandoned planetarium held. As they prepared to rest for the night, Myra caught Kieran looking at her with a soft expression. She looked back, feeling an unspoken understanding between them. The fire in the planetarium had not just been danger, it had been the beginning of something more. Something neither of them had expected, yet both quietly hoped to explore. The next morning, the desert sun rose slowly over the dunes, casting a golden glow that spilled through the cracks of the planetarium. Myra and Kieran woke early, eager to continue their exploration. The events of the previous night, the sparks, the small fire, and the excitement had left them more alert and connected than ever. The planetarium no longer felt empty. It felt like a living puzzle, waiting for them to uncover its secrets together. Myra adjusted her backpack and pointed to a section of the floor that had seemed solid yesterday. "Look," she said. "I noticed something odd here. There's a faint outline under the dust, like a hidden hatch. Maybe it leads somewhere." Kieran knelt down, brushing away the sand and dirt carefully. Soon, the outline became clear, a rectangular door, cleverly hidden in the floor. "This is incredible," he whispered. "Whoever built this didn't want it to be found easily. Are you ready to see what's inside?" Myra's heart raced. "Absolutely," she said. "Let's do it together." They worked in tandem, pushing the hatch open. A cool draft escaped from the dark space below, carrying the smell of metal and earth. Carefully, they descended a narrow staircase, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The chamber below was surprisingly large, with walls lined with strange devices, glowing faintly as if powered by some unknown energy. "This is amazing," Myra breathed, moving closer to one of the devices. Small patterns of light shifted across its surface. It looks like it's responding to us. Kieran joined her, his eyes wide with wonder. It's like the planetarium has a heart, he said softly. It reacts when people care enough to explore it. Myra smiled at the thought. She reached out, touching one of the glowing panels. The device hummed, and suddenly, projections of stars appeared in the air above them, forming constellations that moved slowly, almost like living things. Kieran reached out as well, and when their hands brushed on the panel, the stars above shimmered brighter, reflecting their excitement. This place, it's more than just old technology, Myra whispered. It's almost like it was designed to connect with people to teach them something. Kieran nodded. And maybe it chose us for that, he said, his voice quiet but sincere. Myra felt a small warmth spread through her chest at his words. There was something comforting about being understood, especially by someone who shared her curiosity and wonder. They explored further, discovering devices that displayed maps of distant galaxies, star charts, and rotating models of planets. Myra took careful notes, documenting every detail, while Kieran tested the devices, finding patterns and reactions. Occasionally, they would bump into each other or reach for the same console, and each time, there was a spark of connection, quiet, subtle, but undeniable. After a while, they found a small alcove with a curved bench. Exhausted but thrilled, they sat down together. Myra leaned back, watching the projection of stars dancing above them. It's incredible, she said softly. I never imagined I would see something like this. Kieran sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. Neither did I, he admitted. But being here with you, it makes it even more special. Myra turned slightly to look at him. His eyes reflected the soft glow of the stars above. For a moment, they didn't speak, simply enjoying the silence and the beauty around them. She felt a connection that went beyond friendship, something gentle but growing, like the quiet hum of the planetarium itself. They continued exploring the hidden chamber for hours, discovering new patterns and devices that responded to their presence in unexpected ways. The more they learned, the more they realized how advanced the planetarium's creators must have been. It wasn't just a building, it was a place designed to inspire, to teach, and perhaps even to bond people who were curious enough to enter. As the artificial stars flickered above them, Myra glanced at Kieran and smiled. I'm glad we're doing this together, she said. Kieran smiled back. Me too. I don't think I could have enjoyed it the same way alone. The chamber grew quiet again, save for the soft hum of the devices. Myra and Kieran sat together, sharing the wonder of the hidden planetarium. In that moment, surrounded by lights and stars, they realized that their journey was no longer just about discovery. It was about the bond forming between them, a gentle connection that was as bright and alive as the constellations that danced above. And as they prepared to return to the main hall of the planetarium, they knew that the mysteries of the place were far from over. There was still so much to uncover, and together, they felt ready to face whatever wonders or dangers lay ahead. The desert wind began to rise in the late afternoon, carrying with it tiny grains of sand that cut against the planetarium's walls. Myra glanced out of a cracked window and frowned. Kieran. I think a storm is coming, she said. The horizon was darkening rapidly, the sun swallowed by thick, swirling clouds of dust. Kieran looked up from a console he was studying. You're right, he agreed. If it hits, we might be stuck inside for a while. We need to make sure the planetarium is safe and prepare for the worst. Together, they moved quickly, securing loose equipment and gathering what supplies they could find: old tools, spare lamps, and blankets stored in dusty cabinets. The wind howled outside, rattling the planetarium's walls, and small clouds of sand blew through every crack and doorway. Myra felt a shiver run down her spine, but she kept her focus, following Kieran's calm example. As the storm hit in full force, the planetarium seemed to shake. Dust swirled around the room, and the dim light from the artificial stars flickered with the wind's rhythm. Myra and Kieran huddled together near the main console, their hands brushing as they worked to secure a heavy metal panel that had become loose. "This is intense," Myra said, her voice rising over the roar outside. Kieran nodded. "It's just the storm. We've handled worse on other planets, right?" His confident tone reassured her, and she felt a small smile tug at her lips. Even in the midst of the chaos, there was comfort in their shared determination. The hours stretched on. They found themselves moving constantly, checking weak points in the structure, adjusting broken panels, and making sure that the glowing devices remained safe from sand and debris. Occasionally, they paused to catch their breath, leaning against each other for support. The storm outside was loud and unrelenting, but inside, Myra and Kieran felt a quiet rhythm and unspoken teamwork that grew stronger with each passing moment. At one point, Myra shivered as a particularly strong gust rattled the walls. Without thinking, Kieran reached out and gently held her hand. "It's okay," he said softly. "We're safe here, together." Myra's heart beat a little faster. The touch was brief, but it carried warmth that contrasted with the cold, wild storm outside. She nodded, squeezing his hand back, grateful for his calm presence. For the first time, the planetarium felt less like a building and more like a sanctuary, a place where they could face danger and still feel protected. As night fell, the storm began to settle slightly, but the desert wind still howled in low gusts. Myra and Kieran found a small room off the main hall and decided it would serve as a temporary refuge. They arranged blankets and set up a small lamp that flickered but held steady. Exhausted, they sat side by side, watching the shadows dance across the walls from the lamp's glow. "I never thought I'd be in a storm like this," Myra admitted, her voice low. "It's scary, but I don't feel afraid with you here." Kieran turned to her, his eyes reflecting the lamp's warm light. "I feel the same," he said. "There's something about facing it together that makes it bearable. And maybe even a little exciting." Myra laughed softly, feeling the tension ease from her shoulders. The storm outside was still fierce, but inside, the planetarium had become a place of quiet intimacy. They shared stories to pass the time, talking about other planets they had visited, their dreams, and small memories that shaped who they were. Each story, each laugh, each shared glance drew them closer. Hours passed, and the storm finally began to calm. Myra and Kieran stepped back into the main hall, where the artificial stars flickered gently above. The desert outside was still rough, but inside, the planetarium seemed peaceful again. Myra looked at Kieran and smiled. "We made it," she said softly. Kieran smiled back, his expression warm. "We did. And you know, I think we work really well together." Myra nodded, feeling a spark of something more than friendship. "Yes. I think we do." For the first time, the storm had not just tested their skills and courage, it had also tested the bond between them. And in the quiet aftermath, Myra and Kieran realized that the planetarium was not only a place of discovery but also a place where trust, respect, and something deeper had begun to grow. As they looked at the artificial stars above, both knew that the adventure was far from over. But whatever came next, they would face it together, their connection stronger for having weathered the storm. The desert night had fallen, and the planetarium was quiet after the storm. Myra and Kieran had spent the day repairing minor damages caused by the wind, and now the place glowed softly with the artificial stars above. They moved carefully among the ancient devices, each step echoing slightly in the vast hall. Suddenly, a soft hum filled the air. Myra froze, her eyes scanning the room. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. Kieran nodded, listening closely. The hum grew louder, almost musical, and a faint light began to appear on the walls. Myra's heart skipped a beat. "It's the lights," she breathed. "The cosmic lights, they're back." Outside the planetarium, the desert sky shimmered with strange, moving lights. They weren't stars, exactly, but glowing shapes that twisted and danced, painting the sky with colors neither of them had seen before. Myra grabbed her scanner, taking readings while Kieran pointed out patterns. "There, responding to the planetarium," he said in awe. "Look at how they move when we adjust the devices inside." Myra nodded, fascinated. "It's as if the building was built to attract them, or maybe to communicate with them." As they experimented with the controls, the lights outside pulsed brighter. Suddenly, sparks flew from one of the old consoles, a reaction to the energy in the room. Myra stepped back in alarm. "Kieran!" "Sparks!" Kieran reacted immediately, grabbing a small fire extinguisher from the corner. Myra helped him guide the spray toward the sparks, and together they managed to stop the small fire before it could spread. Smoke curled into the air, mixing with the soft glow of the artificial stars. Breathing heavily, Myra looked at Kieran. "That was close," she said, her voice trembling slightly. He nodded, wiping sweat from his forehead. "But we handled it well," he replied with a small smile. "We've learned how to work together now. Nothing can surprise us completely." Myra laughed softly, feeling the tension fade. The fire had been dangerous, yes, but it also reminded her how much she trusted him and how much she enjoyed having him by her side. They moved closer to each other, standing side by side as they watched the cosmic lights shimmer outside. Minutes passed, and the lights seemed to grow even brighter. Myra noticed Kieran glancing at her from time to time, his expression soft. She felt a warmth in her chest, a quiet realization that her feelings for him had deepened. It wasn't just excitement from the adventure anymore, it was something gentler, something stronger. "Look at them," Myra said quietly, pointing toward the sky. "They're incredible. And I'm glad I'm seeing this with you." Kieran smiled, his eyes reflecting the glow of the cosmic lights. "Me too," he admitted. "I can't imagine experiencing this with anyone else." They spent the next hours adjusting the ancient devices, observing how the lights outside responded to different movements and touches. Each time their hands touched on a console or a panel, the lights above seemed to shimmer brighter, as if acknowledging their presence. The connection between them grew stronger with every shared glance, every small laugh, and every moment of quiet awe. Finally, the sparks and minor flames were completely under control, leaving only the soft glow of the artificial stars inside and the magnificent cosmic display outside. Myra and Kieran sat together on a low bench, watching in silence. Myra leaned slightly toward Kieran, and he instinctively placed a hand near hers, not quite touching, but close enough to convey warmth and comfort. "This place, it's more than a planetarium," Myra whispered. "It's alive. And it feels magical when we're together." Kieran nodded, his smile gentle. "I feel it too. The fire, the lights, the storm, everything brought us here, and now I think I understand why this place is special. And why it brought us together. Myra's heart skipped a beat. For the first time, she realized that this adventure wasn't just about discovering cosmic phenomena, it was about discovering each other. The fire had been a warning, a challenge, and also a spark that had revealed the depth of their connection. As the night continued, the cosmic light slowly faded, but the sense of wonder and intimacy remained. Myra and Kieran stayed close, talking softly about their dreams, the mysteries of the universe, and the journey ahead. The planetarium, once a deserted and lonely place, now felt full of life, hope, and quiet joy. For Myra and Kieran, the fire had not been a threat, it had been a turning point. And under the gentle glow of stars, both artificial and cosmic, they understood that this was only the beginning of something extraordinary. Something that would change the way they saw the universe, and each other, forever. The night was calm, the desert wind having finally settled. Inside the planetarium, the artificial stars above flickered gently, casting soft light across the walls and consoles. Myra and Kieran moved quietly, careful not to disturb the delicate instruments that still glowed faintly after the events of the previous night. I think we've explored almost everything, Myra said, brushing sand from her sleeves. But there's one last section I haven't checked, the observation deck at the top of the dome. It might give us a better view of the real sky. Kieran's eyes lit up. That sounds perfect. Let's go. I've been waiting to see the full desert sky tonight. They climbed the narrow staircase that spiraled to the top of the planetarium. The walls were lined with murals of planets and stars, illuminated softly by the faint glow of the devices below. Myra reached the top first and looked out through the cracked glass dome. The view took her breath away. The desert stretched endlessly, and the sky above was a tapestry of stars, brighter than she had ever seen. And there, mingling with the stars, were the strange, dancing lights they had observed before, glowing softly, like ribbons of color weaving through the night. Kieran joined her, and together they stood in silence, watching the celestial display. The beauty of the moment was overwhelming, and for a while, neither of them spoke. Myra felt the gentle brush of Kieran's shoulder against hers, and a warmth spread through her chest. "It's incredible," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I've never seen anything like this." Kieran smiled, glancing at her. "And I'm glad I'm seeing it with you," he said softly. His words carried a quiet sincerity that made Myra's heart beat faster. She turned to face him fully, the soft glow of the stars reflecting in her eyes. "Kieran, I have to tell you something," she said, her voice trembling slightly. I think I've felt this for a while now. Since the storm, since the fire, since all of this. I care about you. More than I expected." Kieran's expression softened, and he reached out gently, taking her hand in his. "Myra. I feel the same," he said, his voice calm but full of emotion. "I've admired your courage, your curiosity, your spirit. Being here with you, sharing all of this, it made me realize I care about you more than I thought I could." Myra's breath caught in her throat. She had imagined moments like this, but experiencing it felt entirely different, real, solid, and warm. She squeezed his hand, feeling a quiet joy that made the world around them seem even more magical. For a while, they simply stood together, hands entwined, watching the lights move in the sky. The planetarium seemed to hum around them, as if approving of the bond that had grown between them. The faint glow of the devices below mixed with the natural light from the stars, creating a surreal, almost dreamlike atmosphere. Kieran spoke quietly, almost to himself. I never thought I'd find someone who understands this, the wonder, the excitement, the curiosity. But you make it all feel even more alive. Myra leaned closer, resting her head slightly on his shoulder. And you make it feel safe, she said. Even when the fire or the storm came, I never felt alone. I knew we could face it together. They sat on a low ledge near the dome, still holding hands, and shared stories about their lives, their dreams, and their hopes for the future. Every word, every laugh, every glance strengthened the quiet connection that had been growing since their first meeting. I want to keep exploring, Myra said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Not just planets and stars, but life, together. Kieran nodded, his thumb gently brushing over her hand. I want that too. With you. The moment was simple, yet perfect. No grand gestures, no dramatic words, just the quiet understanding of two people who had faced danger, shared wonder, and discovered a connection stronger than either had expected. As the night deepened, the cosmic lights outside faded into the distance, leaving only the stars above and the soft glow of the planetarium. Myra and Kieran remained on the observation deck, hands intertwined, hearts beating in quiet harmony. The bond they had formed was no longer just admiration or friendship, it was love, gentle but certain, like the calm hum of the ancient devices around them. And in that quiet, starlit moment, they knew that whatever challenges awaited them in the future, storms, fires, or mysteries of the universe, they would face them together. The first light of dawn spread across the desert, turning the sand into a sea of gold and red. Myra and Kieran emerged from the observation deck, energized and ready to continue their work. After days of exploration, storms, and small fires, they had learned the planetarium's secrets bit by bit. But now, they were determined to restore it, not just for themselves, but for anyone who might one day witness its wonders. Let's start with the main devices, Myra said, adjusting her backpack and checking her tools. If we can get them all working, we can send signals to the nearby colonies. Maybe they'll come and see the lights too. Kieran nodded, a smile tugging at his lips. And we'll do it together, every step of the way. They moved through the vast halls, carefully repairing circuits, cleaning dust from consoles, and testing ancient devices that still hummed faintly with energy. Myra showed Kieran how to calibrate the star projections, while Kieran demonstrated how to stabilize the energy readings from the strange cosmic phenomena. Their teamwork was effortless now, the trust and understanding between them guiding every action. At one point, Myra stumbled over a loose panel. Kieran caught her gently, their hands brushing. They paused, sharing a quiet laugh. We've really come a long way, Kieran said softly. Myra smiled. We have. And I wouldn't want to do this with anyone else. By mid-morning, the planetarium was alive again. The artificial stars glowed steadily, and the cosmic devices responded smoothly to their movements. Myra activated a small transmitter, and a soft signal pulsed outward across the desert, reaching distant colonies and explorers who might one day follow in their footsteps. As they watched the signal extend into the sky, Myra felt a deep satisfaction. We did it, she said. The planetarium is alive again, and its secrets are ready to be shared. Kieran stepped closer, his hand finding hers. Not just the planetarium, he said gently. We did it together. And we discovered something more important than any star or signal. Myra looked into his eyes, feeling the warmth of their shared journey. Yes, she whispered. We found each other. For a while, they stood hand in hand in the main hall, watching the soft glow of lights and shadows dancing across the walls. The planetarium, once abandoned and silent, now hummed with life, reflecting both the stars above and the bond between them. The fires, storms, and challenges they had faced had not weakened them, they had strengthened their connection, creating a partnership built on trust, admiration, and love. After a moment of quiet reflection, Myra suggested they climb back to the observation deck. "I want to see the desert sky one more time," she said. "With you?" Kiran smiled and took her hand. Together, they ascended the stairs, the murals and devices glowing faintly around them. When they reached the top, the desert stretched endlessly below, bathed in the warm morning light. The sky above was clear and vast, dotted with stars still visible from the fading night. Myra leaned slightly against Kiran, feeling his presence steady and comforting. "It's beautiful," she murmured. "Yes," Kiran agreed. "And it's even more beautiful because we're here together." They watched silently as the sky shifted, the early sunlight mingling with the fading cosmic lights. The planetarium, the desert, and the stars had all played a part in their journey, but it was their shared experiences that made this moment truly extraordinary. They had faced danger, marveled at wonders, and discovered something even greater, a connection that would endure far beyond this lonely planet. Myra turned to Kiran, a playful smile on her face. "So, what's next? More planets, more discoveries?" Kiran laughed softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Yes. But we'll face them together, just like we did here. And who knows, maybe one day, people will come to see this place and understand its beauty. But for now, we have each other, and that's enough." Myra squeezed his hand, feeling a sense of peace she had never known before. The fires had burned, the storms had raged, but through it all, they had grown stronger, wiser, and closer. The deserted planetarium had been transformed not just into a place of learning and wonder, but into a symbol of hope, courage, and the bond between two hearts. As they stood on the observation deck, watching the desert stretch endlessly before them, Myra and Kiran knew that this was only the beginning. The universe was vast, full of mysteries and lights waiting to be discovered. And together, they would explore them all, their hearts intertwined like the stars above, their spirits lifted by the quiet magic of the planetarium and the love they had found within its walls. And so, under the glow of artificial stars and the morning sun, the deserted planetarium was no longer lonely. It was alive with possibilities, discoveries, and the warmth of two hearts who had learned that the greatest adventure was the one they shared together.